Welcome, friends. I'm Jen Hilman. Thank you for joining me. In this video, I'm going to show you some simple massage techniques to help relieve chronic headache tension. So sometimes we can experience headache tension as a result of muscular tension in the neck, in the tops of the shoulders, could be a result of tension in the jaw, or in the base of the skull and the occipitals. So any of those areas that contain or can kind of gather a lot of tension or tightness in those areas can be major contributors to chronic headache tension that we can experience at the base of the skull, coming around along the sides of the head, up over the top of the head, or even sometimes around in between the eyes. And some simple massage can sometimes be very helpful in alleviating that chronic headache tension. So for these techniques that I'm going to show you today, you can have your partner just lying comfortably onto their back. And even if you don't have a massage table, you could have your partner just lying comfortably on a mat on the floor or on a yoga mat, or even just lying in bed, and you can sit cross-legged at the top of their head. So you don't have to have a lot of fancy equipment to help out a friend that has a headache. With these simple techniques, you can help to provide a lot of relief in just a few minutes. So I'm going to start by bringing my hands to the tops of her shoulders and just gently pressing in a downward direction towards the feet. So a lot of times when people carry a lot of tension in the neck and shoulders, they can kind of wear their shoulders like earrings, and the shoulders hike up towards the ears. So it's a very nice, simple opening movement to just begin pressing the shoulders down away from the ears, creating length and space along the tops of the shoulders and the sides of the neck. Now you can do this simultaneously by pressing both hands at the same time, or you can start to experiment with some alternating movement back and forth. And you can get some feedback from your partner to see how does one feel one way or the other, or find out from them what do they like the best. It's so wonderful to be able to curate your massage experience specifically for the person that you're working on. And after doing a little compression on the shoulders, pressing the shoulders downward, I'll glide my hands underneath the curve of the neck, hooking my fingers below the base of the skull and doing a gentle traction pull, leaning my body weight back so I don't have to use a lot of muscular strength to create this gentle traction. So again, the idea is the same, kind of lengthening out the neck, creating some space there, and helping to open up the muscles along the sides of the neck and the tops of the shoulders. And so you don't have to create a lot of movement here. You can do a long, steady hold, just applying a consistent pressure as you lean back, and this will create a dynamic and very alive stretch for your partner's body. So just allowing them to breathe into that space. Slowly, slowly, the spaces between the vertebrae will begin to open. And then I'm just gently and slowly releasing the pressure. So it's not like I just suddenly let go of her head, but I'm allowing for that gentle recoil of the muscle back to its natural state. Then from here, I'm going to begin to work either side of the neck. So using one hand, I'm going to scoop one hand under her head. I'm using the other hand to just guide her head off to the side, opening up this space along the neck where I'm going to do my work. Now, the scalene muscles are three sister muscles that travel side by side down the side of the neck. So they kind of originate at the base of the skull and travel down the side of the neck and come in and attach at the clavicle, the collarbone, as well as some of the tops of the ribs. So these three sister muscles do a lot of work for us, and they can get super tight, and they can be some major contributors to headache tension. So, as the neck is exposed, I'm going to use my thumb. I'm using kind of the flat part of my thumb, and I'm just gently tracing the line of the anterior scalene, so that would be the one in the front. And you'll notice here I didn't necessarily apply any oil to her skin. I've found that a lot of times people's skin is naturally a little bit more oily around the neck and the head and the face. And I personally don't really like to get a lot of oil in my hair when I'm getting a massage. So I don't often apply extra oil when I'm massaging someone's neck. Usually my hands are oily enough, their neck is oily enough, but if your partner is dealing with dry skin or there's not enough glide, you can apply just a dab or two of an unscented oil to help, move things along as you're working these muscles. And I'm just tracing the line of the scalenes, and I'm using a medium pressure. It's not super deep. These scalenes can be loaded with trigger points, can be very intense, uncomfortable, and sometimes painful when we're working these muscles. So I like to use kind of a light to medium pressure, especially as I'm warming up their body and starting to work into those layers of muscle. So I'm just tracing these 3 scalenes from front to back. And you may notice that one or the other feels more tight than the other. You might notice particular places or spots that feel very tense. If you come across any knots or any areas that feel particularly congested, you can spend a little extra time there. Kind of noticing right at the base of the neck here, right at the tail end of this posterior scalene, just a little bit of congestion there. So you can make some gentle circles or vibration back and forth, but these are like very small baby micro movements. So especially in the neck, the muscles there can be very thin, very slender, or just small little muscles. So you don't have to make big movements or you're on to the next muscle already. So you can really dial it in and hone in the work that you're doing. Then once I've worked the scalenes, I like to come up along the back edge of the neck. So I'm not completely in the back of the neck, like next to the vertebrae, but kind of tracing the top edge of the trapezius that actually comes all the way up and attaches at the base of the skull. So you can use the flat parts of your knuckles to work, tracing that line from the top of the shoulder all the way up to the base of the skull. You can also go the other way with this movement, starting at the head and tracing that line down to the top of the shoulder. You can do that maybe 3 times, tracing the line up and tracing the line back down. And as I reach the end point of each stroke, I'm giving a little pressure to create a little stretch for those muscles. So as I come all the way up to the top, I arrive at the base of the skull and just give a little bit of pressure. You might be able to see that little stretch for the neck. And then tracing the line back down to the top of the shoulder and giving that little bit of stretch. And we can go ahead and trace your fingertips along the very back of the neck. And so here I'm coming just to the side of the vertebrae. So I'm working the left side of her neck. I'm on the left side of the vertebrae, pretty much working the very back of the neck. And this is another area that can get really, really tight, especially as you come up to the base of the skull and that occipital ridge. You can carry a lot of tension there. So you can kind of hook your fingertips just below the base of the skull, and you'll feel some dense, thick muscle tissue. So that's a lot of, tendons and ligaments, a lot of connective tissue there, which is not quite as soft and supple as some of the meatier parts of our muscles. So it's a little more dense, a little more thick, doesn't quite get as much circulation and blood flow, and it can get very congested with tension. So this is an area, again, that can have a lot of trigger points, especially if your partner is experiencing a headache at the moment that you're working on them. You might start to kind of tap into some points that directly trigger that headache response. So if they're even experiencing in the moment, like, whoa, the headache is getting more tense, then you actually know you're right on the money. So you can apply a steady, consistent pressure to that place. Oftentimes I will close my eyes and I take some deep breaths with them, and I envision those muscles and those attachments relaxing and releasing, and some of that tension will start to dissipate. So you can hold that steady pressure for 10 to 20 to 30 seconds. And then again, you can make some gentle movements, small little baby circles or little vibration in there to help encourage the muscles to relax. So once you've worked those scalenes along the side, work the tops of the traps up and down, follow the line of the back of the neck and work a little bit into the occipital ridge. You can gently scoop your hand under your partner's neck, slowly guiding their head through center. You might do a little traction pull right here down the middle, and then prepare to roll their head to the second side so we can explore what's going on the second side. So moving on to the second side, I'm just going to recap for you. And if you want to practice along, you can restart this video and just repeat this sequence on the second side. But as you roll the head over, be sure that you're mindful of the ears. You don't want to squish the ears or fold the ears up. And then we'll begin by tracing the lines of the scalenes, those 3 sister muscles. Tracing 1, 2, and 3 from front to back, following those lines. And if you notice any particular spots, any trigger points, or any areas of tension in those muscles, feel free to stay and spend some extra time there, really giving your love and your attention to that place. Okay, then we'll come in with the flat parts of the knuckles. You can trace the line from the top of the shoulder along the side of the neck, coming all the way up to the base of the skull, and we give it a little stretch, and then trace the line back down to the top of the shoulder and give it a little stretch. Now, depending on how much time you have with your partner, you may repeat that cycle 2 or 3 or 5 times, depending on your time. And just making sure that you give it that little extra push, that little extra stretch at the end of each stroke. And then we'll start to use the finger pads to work along the back edge of the neck. So really starting to come a lot closer to the midline, coming a lot closer to the spine. I'm tracing my fingers from the base of her neck all the way up to the base of the skull. You can trace that line as many times as you feel is needed. And then you make your way into the occipital ridge there at the base of the skull. And you will certainly feel that the muscle tissue becomes a lot more dense here as all these muscles are coming together to hold your head onto your neck. And it's a pretty important conjunction when we consider how big our head is compared to the very top of our spine. So there's a lot of musculature that's coming in to keep everything intact. It can get a lot of tension in there, which is oftentimes a cause of those headaches. It can be quite sensitive and full of trigger points, so it's important to be mindful of your pressure as you work into that occipital ridge. And once you feel complete and balanced on both sides, you can slowly roll your partner's head back to center and give them a little traction pull right down the middle. And then, of course, you can add any finishing touches that might help relieve that headache tension. Maybe making some little circles along either side of the temples. I like to go 3 or 4 times in one direction and 3 or 4 times in the other direction, using a really light pressure. It doesn't take a lot to feel really good in the temples. You can also massage between the eyebrows or across the top of the forehead. That can be very helpful for relieving headache tension. You may also find it helpful to do some work into the jaw. So if your partner is suffering with TMJ or clenching or grinding teeth, that can be a result of tightness in the jaw, and that can also contribute to chronic headache tension. So as we're helping to relieve these headaches, we want to leave no stone unturned, really working into all areas of the tops of the shoulders, the neck, the skull, the head and the face. You can do work around the sinuses in case there's like some seasonal allergy or sinus pressure that could be contributing to those headaches. And then I always like to finish with some nice scalp massage. This feels so good. It's so relaxing. Occasionally I will come across clients who don't like to have their head massaged, but 9 times out of 10, I would say that most people really love it. It's really relaxing and can be quite effective in relieving chronic headache tension. So thank you so much for following along with me in this video. I hope that you found it useful and helpful. Please comment below if you have any questions or any insights from your own personal experiences. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and visit my website, jenhilman.com, and I will see you next time. Namaste.